You know, in a world that can feel pretty chaotic and demanding, a lot of us are looking for some kind of compass. Well, today we're diving into yoga's ethical foundation. It's this incredible, ancient guide built on principles called the Yamas and Niyamas, and it really offers a practical map to living a more meaningful life.
For most of us, when we hear yoga, we think about what happens on the mat, right? The stretches, the poses. But what if the practice's real power is actually a philosophy for your life off the mat? What if these ancient roots hold a super practical guide for navigating our complicated modern world with a bit more integrity and a lot more peace?
And that is the exact idea at the heart of Deborah Adele's work. She doesn't see these principles as some rigid old-school rulebook, not at all. She calls them a detailed map for conscious living, basically a set of tools to help us make better choices from one moment to the next.
So what is this map exactly? Well, it's made up of 10 principles, which Adele beautifully calls jewels of wisdom. And these 10 jewels, together, they form our ethical compass. They guide how we deal with the world around us, and, just as importantly, how we deal with ourselves.
Now, these 10 jewels are split into two groups. First up, you've got the 5 yamas. These are all about how we interact with the outside world, our social behavior. Then there are the 5 niyamas, which are all about our personal habits and our inner world. I like to think of it like this. The yamas are about tending to your garden, while the niyamas are about tending to the gardener.
So while there are 10 of these principles, Adele makes it crystal clear that one of them is the absolute bedrock for everything else. And that principle is ahimsa, or nonviolence. So let's really dig into why this is the essential starting point for the whole practice.
Ahimsa literally means causing no harm. But here's what makes this so profound. It's scope. It's not just about, not getting into physical fights. It's about getting rid of harm in our thoughts, in our words, and in our actions, both towards other people and, crucially, toward ourselves.
And this quote just nails why it's the foundation. Adele warns that if we don't ground our lives in nonviolence, everything else we try to build, our success, our relationships, our spiritual journey, it's all going to be built on shaky ground, always at risk of falling apart. It's the baseline, period.
So what does this harm actually look like? Well, you've got the obvious stuff. Physical aggression, cruelty. We get that. But ahimsa asks us to look way deeper, at the subtle kinds of harm we dish out all the time without even thinking. Things like that harsh inner critic, snapping at a loved one because we're impatient, a little bit of gossip, or even just the constant violence of worry that we inflict on our own peace of mind.
To really make this idea click, Adele uses this fantastic metaphor. Imagine you've got a can that's just full of red paint. No matter how hard you try, you can't dip your brush in there and paint a blue wall. It's just impossible, right? The color that comes out is always going to be what's inside the can. And that's the whole point. The red paint, that's our inner state. If we're filled with self-criticism, if we're harsh with ourselves on the inside, we simply cannot express genuine kindness and compassion on the outside. Nonviolence toward others has to start with nonviolence toward ourselves.
So if non-harming is our foundation, how do we start building on top of it? Well, once we really get ahimsa, you start to see how all the other principles just lock right into place. Each one reinforces this one core idea.
Okay, let's take the next principle, satya, which means truthfulness. Now, this is about more than just not telling lies. It's about living and speaking with real authenticity and integrity. But there's a really important catch.
Satya always has to be balanced by ahimsa. Always. From a yoga point of view, if you speak a truth without kindness, it's not really truth anymore. It's actually a form of violence. We've all seen someone use brutal honesty just to hurt someone. That is not satya. True truthfulness is always compassionate.
All right, now let's check out a principle from the niyamas, those inner practices. This one is called santosha, or contentment. And it's the practice of basically falling in love with your life just as it is, right now. Cultivating gratitude instead of always chasing what's next.
So how does this link back to our foundation of nonviolence? Well, think about it. Being constantly discontent is a subtle but really powerful form of violence against yourself. It's that nagging voice telling you that you're not enough, that your life isn't enough, that something is wrong. Santosha is the practice of self-compassion. It's about laying down that inner weapon.
Okay, so this all sounds really nice in theory, right? But how do we actually bring this foundation into our real, messy, everyday lives? Well, the good news is it just starts with a few small, conscious steps.
So here are 3 simple invitations to get you started, pulled right from the principles we've been talking about. First, for ahimsa, just observe. Start to notice that inner critic, but without judging it. Second, for Satya, filter your words. Before you speak, just pause and ask yourself, is it true? And is it kind? And finally, for Santosha, appreciate. Find one small thing at the end of your day that you're genuinely grateful for.
And please remember, the goal here is absolutely not perfection. Nobody gets this right all the time, believe me. The real aim is simply conscious participation, just to be more aware of our choices and to gently, consistently nudge ourselves toward a kinder way of being.
Because, as Adele puts it so beautifully, when you lay your head on the pillow at night, what really matters isn't what you've accomplished. The real question is, how well have you participated in your own life? It's a pretty profound question, and maybe that's the real foundation of a meaningful existence. Thanks for joining me today.